But with the Republican race basically settled and Hillary Clinton on a steady path to the Democratic nomination, the focus is instead on 3 general election battlegrounds: Florida, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. That's because Quinnipiac University is out with new head-to-head polls in those 3 crucial swing states that run counter to Clinton's current 7 to 12 point lead over Trump in many national polls. In Pennsylvania, Clinton and Trump are statistically tied at 43% and 42% respectively. The same is true in Florida, which is, as we have all learned, a must-win state for almost any future president. And finally, in Ohio, Quinnipiac has Trump up 43% to 39% for Clinton, which is still within the margin of error, but, up. There's lots in here to dig into here, but as we know, polls like these do 2 things. They reflect reality and they create reality. So, Mark, let us begin with the first thing that these polls do, which is to say, reflect reality. What reality exactly do these polls reflect?
Let's not, America, overreact to one set of polls, but Quinnipiac is a good pollster, and these states obviously are critical to determining which one of these 2 wins. If it's
2 of them are for sure critical.
Yeah. So let's just take on face value that these aren't bad polls, and the fact that all 3 of them show the race close suggests maybe something's going on. One of the biggest explanations of why Trump is doing better in these 3 states than the national numbers is men. Take a look at men support for Trump versus Clinton in these 3 states. In Pennsylvania, Trump with a huge lead. Ohio, huge lead. Big lead with men, even in Florida. What does that tell you? You look at the national polls now. Men are favoring Trump, usually, though, by single digits. In some places, they're tied. So what is powering Trump's lead here in these 3 states, or the closeness in the 3 states, I should say? Largely, it is overwhelming support from male voters. And there's no doubt that if Trump's going to win a general election, he's going to have to dominate men as much, or dare I say it, more than Hillary Clinton is dominating women.
Let me offer, that is obviously true in the sense that it was reflected in the numbers that Trump seems to be doing.
Almost everyone who will vote in the general election comes from one of those 2 demographic groups.
Men and women, yes, yeah. Good point. Very good point. Very acute observation. I will say I'll make another very acute observation here, that historically speaking, nominees from major parties get a boost in polling when they become presumptive nominees. Having that declared, that basically the race is over, that this is now the nominee, they tend to get a bump. Mitt Romney got one, John McCain got one, Barack Obama, they've gotten presumptive nominee status at different points in the race, but they usually get a boost. And so I think that at least some of what's going on here, on the basis of just historical trends, is that Trump is getting favorable attention in these states from voters who are looking at him as the nominee, and they're not yet doing that for Hillary Clinton, even though we know mathematically she's just as presumptive as Donald Trump.
Yeah, look, in a world of a normal Republican nominee, a normal Democratic nominee, you'd say the party's base comes home. They get well over 90% of the people from their party voting. If Trump can continue to consolidate Republican support, it won't be surprising if a lot of these battleground states are not 10-point, 7-point Clinton margins, but in fact, Trump even or ahead. And again, it all starts with the gender gap, because as unpopular as Trump is with women, Hillary Clinton has a man problem.
Well, and just to expand upon that point a little bit, it is also the case that there is other polling that suggests that what you're saying is actually happening, which is to say, although there's a lot of division, I heard the bell, but there's a lot of division at the elite ranks of Republicans. In fact, at the level of actual Republican voters, there is consolidation happening, and that's not happening yet for Hillary Clinton in the Democratic race.
She's still fighting Bernie Sanders. All right, so that was the reality of what these polls reflect. But, John, what reality, since these polls have come out, are they creating and will create?
Well, they're certainly helpful to Donald Trump, right? In what we have both identified.
Best thing that's happened to Trump in a long time for all of his needs.
Undoubtedly. Look, this is a guy who needs to. Who obviously everybody feeds on looking like a winner. But if you're trying to, as his central goal right now, one of his central goals is to unify the Republican Party and overcome doubts of people that think Trump is a sure loser, pointing out that there are battleground states in which he's competitive or ahead of Hillary Clinton right now helps to ameliorate those doubts, and it's something he can point to, and it may actually be something that is even possibly true.
There are some Republicans like Bill Kristol who say, I'm not worried about Trump losing, I'm worried about Trump winning. He'd be a horrible president. But mostly, you've got congressional members, down ballot candidates, governors. If they thought Trump was going to win, then they could start focusing.
Or that he would be certainly competitive.
But then that
it would be a close general election.
What they'd start focusing on is, how do we make Trump a better candidate? How do we work better together with Trump's team? How do we help get Trump over the finish line? That's what Trump needs. So this is great news for him. And of course, you said any candidate needs Florida to win. The reality is Democrats don't need Florida to win.
No,
at
I
this
understand.
Point. Republicans do, and they need Ohio. There's no map to 270
Right.
without those two states. Pennsylvania would be a bonus state for them. But what this does is says to Republicans, there's a potential path to 270,
right.
and it might even include in Pennsylvania, which is tied. It might even include Trump winning an Obama state that the Democrats have held for many cycles in a row.
As you know, Pennsylvania often fools gold for Republicans.
It is.
My only point about Florida was just to say that, in fact, there are paths for Democrats to win without Florida. But the truth is, Barack Obama won Florida in 2012, 2008. George W. Bush won it in 2004 and 2000. It just happens to be that winning Florida often correlates with being president. It's not necessary, but it's often correlative. So the thing is, Trump does not need to prove to Republicans that he is going to win. What he needs to prove to Republicans is that he will not be a massive drag on the ticket, that he's doomed to lose and lose badly. As long as they think he's competitive, they can start to get their minds around it.
The other reason it's good news for Trump is since Trump became the presumptive nominee, he's basically been acting like Trump. He's moderated a few positions, but he's basically acting like Trump.
Right.
This says to them, to other Republicans, hey, Trump can win by being Trump. We don't need to get him to change, because if they're banking on him changing to win,
foolish banking.
Foolish banking.
Don't put your money in that bank, Buster. No way.